reconvene.
So that's impressive.
Apparently.
We will report out from closed session with respect to every item of business to be discussed. That is, we discussed the, or just that one? Yeah. There we go. Thank you. In regards to item 4B, the graduation waiver discussed in closed session is part of the consent agenda. In regard to item 4C1, the board voted unanimously in closed session to approve settlement 2019-01 in the amount of $72,100. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Oh, with time limit, yeah, including the time limit.
Yes. So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
All
Any-
those in favor?
All those in favor?
Thank you. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed?
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. All right. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, are there any items the trustees wish to remove from the consent agenda? Student trustees, welcome back.
Is there a motion to approve?
Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay? Okay, great, thank you. Students, welcome back. Happy New Year. Love to hear what you've been up to already. Shall we, Maddie, shall we start with you this time? Sure. Thank you.
All right. So as Drake is already winding up, as we're back from winter break, students already have to think about the classes that they're going to choose for next year. So this Thursday, Friday, we're going to have our course workshops where people can go and listen to presentations by teachers in order to get a feel about different classes, in order to see which ones they want to take. We have 2 new classes this semester. We have ethnic studies, which I know a lot of people are really excited for. And then also we're making SOAR, Students Organized for Anti-Racism, a class this year, sort of like along with ASB or peer resource, sort of like that. So it will be an actual class, and then they'll have the full, like, a lot more time to work on everything except besides just when they used to have just one lunch period once a week, which was really hard to get a lot done besides like the whole district meeting. So having it in a class will hopefully really elevate what they're able to do. The next big thing that we're doing is we're going to sort of reevaluate our SLCs. We're definitely not going to change anything for next year, but we're hoping to have a plan by next fall. So we're sort of looking at what we need to work on in the SLCs and how to address that. So we have a teacher group that's going to work on this, and then we're also going to have focus groups between all the different interested parties, including student focus groups of mostly students in SLCs currently, but also one for 11th and 12th graders. And then those focus groups will be run by some of the people from Circle Education who have come in already to help, was going to lead focus groups for restorative practice training for our teachers, and then also was going to come in and talk to our students about that. So we thought it would be a good idea to ask them to lead the SLC workshops with the students so that they don't feel like if we had one of the teachers running them, then they may not be as honest if we, instead, when we had an outsider come in, then they might be more honest about some of the things that need to be worked on. So what some people are sort of feeling about SLCs already, why we're starting this, is that they're inconsistent with each other and trying to bridge that gap. I know this talk has sort of been circulating this last year, and a lot of students I've talked to, the ones that have told me this specifically mostly in rock, but also some Da Vinci kids, are worried that their SLC is going to be changed because they really had a good time and felt like they had a good education and good experiences. So I know they're definitely worried about somehow that differing for future students. And that also brings up the question that if we want true equity, I feel like usually the first choice is to bring some of the SLCs down in order to be on the same playing field as the others, which that feels a bit unfair to the students who were in those SLCs or are in those SLCs and really like them. And also, is that really addressing the problem instead of just sweeping it under the rug by equalizing them, by bringing them all down to the same level? So those are some of the questions that we'll be addressing, and hopefully in the student groups we can get a really good idea of what the students want, and then also what the teachers feel and everyone feels about this really hard to manage and important topic.
If we have questions for the student trustees, should we wait for them all to go, or? No. No, okay. Hi, so SLC is a small learning community?
Yes.
That's right, okay.
Yes.
The focus groups that you're having, do you have a purpose?
Right now we're really just trying to get feedback from students, yeah. So we're trying to just have the focus groups be just any feedback the students can give, and then hopefully that will sort of mostly be in one area, and then we can then go forward from that and make a plan of how to address that area. But the thing I was talking about, the inconsistency, is that was more something the administration's been talking about.
Okay.
So that's sort of why we're having the focus groups.
Because I guess as a trustee, I would hope that you raise all groups.
Yeah.
Rather than.
So
With
I
the
think,
caveat, I did student teaching in rock, so.
Yeah.
Right, but, okay.
yeah, so I think right now we're still very much in the brainstorming phase of everything.
Thanks, Maddie.
Tamalpais is just kicking off. Either yesterday or today was their students' first day back. Today was mine. Back last Friday, we had our back-to-school assembly. It was a big success. Since it was raining, I actually think that helped everyone, since everyone was sort of forced to go into the hub. If I got the number correct, there was about 17 new students, and I think they really socialized with the old students really well. All the team, CEC, Pathways, and IS students were all in the hub together and just eating pizza, bagels, and salads donated by the parents, and just talking. It was really fun. One thing that people complain about is Tamalpais doesn't have a social aspect, so I think that this was a good sort of breakthrough on that. And something that we even talked about in our advisory afterwards was maybe having more of those. And I know that seniors get an advisory, get an assembly at the end of the year, so maybe we were even talking about having even more assemblies, because it was really a fun time for socialization. We walked down to the Larkspur movie theater and watched a movie, Angst, one that Drake created. It was really good. It covered topics that oftentimes aren't covered. And then we had an afterwards discussion about anxiety and the pressures on students. It was really great, and just as students, especially in this high sort of pressure society of Marin, so close to the city, with so many of our parents in so successful work environments, we are just pressured to do so well in school and then in college, and we talked about how that impacts us and how that makes us feel scared. And we talk about how we want to address that and how we want to make sure we don't go down the wrong path. And then, so, since yesterday or today was people's first days of school, they're still adjusting, getting their schedules figured out. Grace, the student counselor, she's working really hard, making sure everyone has the right schedules. So there are going to be some shifts in the next couple weeks, but it should all be figured out. And since there are only 17-ish new students, there's not much new intake, so most classes are usually the same. Again, that might change since a lot of new students come to Tamascal mid-semester, and that's great. So everything's just as normal.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kara. I wasn't here at the last meeting. I'm the TAM rep. So what's going on at TAM are the TAM News won a Pacemaker finalist from NSPA for one of the best high school websites for news websites. So that was really exciting for all of us. Our winter rally got rescheduled from December, so that's happening a week from Friday, and everyone's really excited about that, although we're not sure that we will all fit in the gym, so we're not really sure what's going to happen there, but we'll hope for the best. On Thursday and Friday of last week, our SOAR went into a bunch of classes, mainly freshman classes, to teach a presentation that we actually stole from Drake about microaggressions and how to address them, and that was really positive. We hadn't done that presentation with freshmen yet, and there aren't that many freshmen in SOAR, so it was a really good way to kind of reach the younger group at TAM, considering that most of the SOAR kids are juniors or seniors. I'm a student in both leadership and yearbook, and a lot of kids that, at least I'm in my circles because of that, are freaking out about no 0 periods or 8th periods next year. It's been all the talk on TAM, especially for the drama, stagecraft, and yearbook, which are both classes that can really only function in the 8th period environment, and they're all worried that their programs are just going to be cut. So at least in the group that I'm around in TAM, there's been a lot of talk about that, and everyone's just kind of anxious. There's also a lot of talk about ethnic studies and women's history, and the classes that people fought so hard to get, they're so afraid that with the 30-kid limit, they're just going to be taken away, and then, I don't know. And the people that I'm around in TAM, everyone's freaking out about that, but that could just be the me population. We're having the 52 anniversary of the TAM Breakthrough Day, which will be 2 days in late February, and the students met today. This is the first time, well, this is only the third time. Do you guys know what Breakthrough is? No. So 52 years ago at TAM, there was an assembly to work on racial integration and anti-racism at TAM 50 years ago. And then my freshman year, so 2 years ago, they brought it back. They brought in speakers, poets, and it was a whole day where just the whole school was devoted to talking about these issues that kind of go untalked about at TAM, with the weird dynamic coming from the Sausalito Marin City School District and the Mill Valley School District, how there's that weird kind of racial tension. We didn't do it last year due to scheduling conflicts, but we're bringing it back this year, and it's student-led. So a bunch of students met. There were about 30 of them that all met today from various organizations to try and piece this together, and it'll be the week after midwinter break, or whatever we call it, the President's Day week, after that break.
So it'll be the Monday or the Friday after?
I think it's Monday and Thursday. They're doing 2 days. I'm not exactly sure which days they are, but Monday will definitely be one, and then I don't know if they're doing Friday or Thursday. That's still in discussion. Kids were really scared today because there was a king tide, and that normally floods TAM, but it didn't flood, so we're okay. Yeah, we'll see.
For clarification, it floods the parking lot.
It floods the parking. It doesn't flood the. Yeah. Just there's
Right
the.
on the hill.
Yeah, my bad. But yeah, my freshman year, our PE class went swimming in that parking lot when it flooded. So we did not get to do that today, unfortunately. And we have a basketball game against Redwood on Saturday, which all the kids are getting excited for. And leadership is deciding to work on a student senate, which we don't have, but we want to create one. So we're doing that. And CTE is, I don't know what date it is, but beginning of February they have their improv and dance show, which is really fun. It's my favorite one of the year, where the audience just writes down a topic and then they have to do it. So it's always funny to see my friends come up with something that's not Shakespeare, and they're all uncomfortable. But it's fun. So that's it.
Thank you, Kara. Lauren?
Okay, Redwood's had a couple of newsworthy things actually happen in this past week. I forget the exact date, but Wes Porter, who's a senior at Redwood, and a few other Drake students were surfing together and then rescued these swimmers who were drowning in the water, and so that was a really big deal. Another thing, Joe Coy, who's a really famous comedian, visited Redwood this past week. He visited the language of humor classes. the teacher, Ms. Giraldini, reached out to him, I think over Instagram, and he was really impressed with their work and the class. And so he came and visited and did some stand-up comedy, and then he even donated $5,000 to the classes just because he was really impressed with the work they were doing. He donated merchandise, he bought some students lunch, and he even asked one of the students to open for him at his next performance. And he asked another student to film his performances in the Bay Area. So that was really exciting. Only the language of humor classes got to see him, but you can see it on his Instagram. He posted a lot of photos of it. And the BARC wrote a story about it, so that was really exciting. Students are gearing up for scheduling with counselors. Scheduling opened January 22nd, I believe. The CEA, the cafeteria, started a new delivery food distribution system. There have been issues in the past with lines being really long, and because now that we have a closed campus, a lot more people are relying on the CEA for lunch food. So they used to make 260 meals, or serve 260 meals in the first 10 minutes of lunch, and because of this new system, they now serve 340 meals in 10 minutes, and there's still room for improvement. There's a new food service director, and they just made the lines a little different, so you can pay with an ID in a different line than paying with cash, so it's a little faster. And then Redwood also, some students also saw the film Angst that Charlotte talked about stress and anxiety. So that's all.
Thanks, Lauren.
I just want to have a point of clarification. They're not eliminating 0 and 8th period sections. Just for, I know that's been a point of confusion. Those periods will still exist.
Yeah.
For some equity reasons and access reasons, some classes are being moved out of 0 into the 1 through 7 day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
That's okay. Nope. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, I will not replace Leslie. I'm honored to be sitting in her seat because she's, in my view, has done a tremendous job, but I will make a report later from my own.
That's fine.
That's your report. Okay, I was looking at it.
It's okay. So I was remembering being a 15-year-old recently, for obvious reasons. And one of the things that came to me is I remember very clearly having a conversation with my best friend about, like, I wonder where we'll be when the year 2000 happens, right? And it was like this big, and I never thought beyond that. You know, it never occurred to me to think about 2019 and where I would be. And during my first year of teaching, my mentor teacher said to me, each year will go faster than the previous one. And so far, that has completely held true. It's really hard to believe that we're here in 2019, but here we are. So this year, we're facing some very challenging decisions, which we are taking very seriously. We're striving to be as inclusive and collaborative as possible. Given our current financial situation, we must reduce our spending to ensure fiscal solvency for the district. Later this evening, I will share an update on the Fiscal Advisory Committee process, but I want to take a moment right now to sincerely thank all of the parents, staff members, certificated classified and management staff who are serving on the Fiscal Advisory Committee and engaging in very hard work of identifying potential budget reductions. The committee has been highly engaged, thoughtful, compassionate, and honest. It's not been an easy task to develop the draft recommendation, but they did it collaboratively and civilly. And for them, I am really thankful. Collaboration was a core value that I spoke to in my letter of introduction, and I hope that my commitment to that value has been demonstrated throughout this process. On a brighter side, this January we have a new governor. In his proposed state budget, there's some relief for California's K-12 school districts in the form of a one-time pay down of the state teachers retirement system, or STRS, pension liability. What we know as of today is that Governor Newsom's proposal would reduce our contribution to STRS pensions by about 1% in each of the next 2 years. What remains unclear is whether we will be asked to resume contributions at the previously established levels after those 2 years. So we're not sure if it's going to be a one-time savings or an ongoing savings. And just for edification, that budget won't be adopted until June, if we're lucky. The goal is June, so we won't really know if that, he puts that out there and then it becomes a negotiation. So, but it's encouraging that the state is taking seriously the impact those increased contributions are having on our districts, so I appreciate that. And a reminder that we have our budget update community forums coming up this week and next week. We have tomorrow night, the 16th, is at Redwood Library at 6 p.m. Thursday night, the 17th, will be at Drake in their staff lounge at 6 p.m. And on the 22nd, we'll be at TAM in their classroom 2020 at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Dora. Oh, thank you. Go next.
This is me.
Yeah, this is you.
Yeah. So I'm just going to do it from here, if that's okay.
Okay.
Mary, do you have your- Thanks. So tonight, we just have a fiscal advisory process update for everyone. I don't think any of the information in this is new, but if so, we're happy to provide it, and if not, we're happy to repeat it for you. So this is just a reminder of where we were in July of 2018. As you can see, we are really, really grateful that the parcel tax passed, so that we're going to realize $5 million in additional revenue, which helps us tremendously with the structural deficit that we're in. But you also notice that even with that, we knew we were going to have a $3 million shortfall moving forward. So last spring, before budget adoption, there were a series of budget reductions identified that equated to about $1.8 million. And this has come up in the process of having conversations with people where they were sort of asking, they weren't seeing some of these cuts in our presentations and wondering where they were. So we just wanted to reiterate that these cuts were made and that they were part of the budget that was adopted in June. So that's why you're not seeing them in proposals now. These were already reduced by the time we adopted the budget and were reflected therein. We identified more savings post-budget adoption, and these savings are reflected in this spreadsheet. So these would be, as you can see, these are the elimination of 2 administrative positions and then some other reductions, the reimbursement of the former superintendent's housing loan. So these reductions, some of them are ongoing, some of them are one-time, but we wanted to make sure people understood that these were also part of our ongoing savings. So where we were at budget adoption compared to where we are now. So at budget adoption, you can see that we are projected to deficit spend in this current year by nearly $8 million. The changes that we've made that include the parcel tax, the 7/12 portion of the parcel tax that we will realize this year, and other reductions bring our deficit down to about $3.7 million for this year. Okay, over the multi-year, that top line, what you can see is what our projected deficits were at budget adoption, including the ending fund balance, or where our reserve was meant to be. Obviously, the big problem being that we would be insolvent in 3 years. So as of December, at our first interim, these were our new projected deficits. So a huge improvement. However, we are still deficit spending, and these out years here assume a $3 million reduction in spending.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
In terms of insolvent by mid-year, that was pre-parcel tax. What would be the projection with the parcel tax if we use the same assumptions straight out? Another 2 years insolvent? if we didn't?
So that's with the parcel taxes here.
Yeah, but if we don't make these, cuts, we are going to be
Right.
insolvent by mid-year, what, in,
The end of the following year, because if you look at that deficit,
Yes.
it's about 10, if you think of 2 years of parcel tax plus the portion this year.
Yeah,
So
it would be about another 2 years.
2022?
It would be another
3
12 to
$3
18
million
months
per
beyond that.
year.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so this is the multi-year projection that was shared with you, or shared publicly in the December first interim report. I don't expect you to analyze this, but I have it up so that you can see that this is where that $3 million worth of cuts that the fiscal advisory is identifying show up in the budget, so that our bottom lines include that $3 million. So I just wanted people to be clear that that's where that $3 million is living. So just the key dates that we've been sharing. As I said, we'll get the governor's reviews in May, and hopefully by June have a budget from the state that we'll know more about, but our budget adoption will be in June, regardless of the states. So this is the timeline that we have been sharing for a budget reduction recommendation. Just a reminder of where we were throughout the spring and summer and fall of this year, bringing us up to our present day, or the week, that the fiscal advisory has met approximately 7 times, not approximately, exactly 7 times since August. The last one was on December 17th. Corbett and I are on our tour, giving the information and gathering feedback. We've been at sites this week. We'll continue to be at sites next week. We have our community meetings. The Fiscal Advisory Committee will meet one more time in January, take in all the feedback, make any adjustments to the recommendation they see fit, before I bring a recommendation forward to the board for consideration on February 12th. No action will be taken on February 12th. The action will be taken at the subsequent meeting in February 26th. Just a reminder of the purpose of the fiscal advisory, and that they are in fact an advisory body, and that they will be making a recommendation to me, and that the recommendation that comes to the board will be from me, based on input from the fiscal advisory and all the work they've done. Composition of the committee. We ended up with 13 members. Here they are. We did have 2 community representatives resign from the committee, and just to speak to that, they resigned because when they heard the term fiscal advisory, they had a different understanding of what work they were going to be asked to do. They were thinking more financial forecasting and things like that. And so when we sat down and started going through prioritization processes, they were sort of like, this wasn't what I thought. So we thank them for their service, and maybe if we have a different type of advisory committee in the future, they would be willing to come back for that.
So does that mean we don't have community representatives? Or
We do.
only
We just
have
had
one?
2 that fell off. We have a community partner representative. This was the decision-making process that we laid out and used with our fiscal advisory committee. It's a 5-step process that provides clarity and ensures that we sort of stay on task throughout the process. So I won't go through the whole process, as we met a lot, but essentially what the Fiscal Advisory Committee was charged to do was to look at our LCAP, which are the goals that the district and the promises it makes to its community, and the action steps therein, and went through some prioritization processes. It was a very iterative process. And once they had gone through the process themselves, we then brought in the LCAP survey and budget update feedback that we got from the community and from staff and students. We went through all of that. Just a reminder that we had over 1,000 responses to the LCAP survey. They went through all of that data, They layered that in. They looked for alignment and differing opinions. And after going through those processes, we spent a good amount of time discussing our solution criteria. Essentially is, we'll know we'll have a good recommendation if these things are in place. These were the criteria that the committee jointly came up with, along with some things that they wanted people to know, that they kept equity in mind, that they were thinking of the broader community, and that they were really trying to minimize the impact on the school community given the scope of the task. They also wanted to make sure that we were going to put in place processes to measure those impacts moving forward. So after going through that, they then drafted their recommendation. And that's where we are now, in the process of getting feedback. Corbett and I presented at each of the sites. Well, actually, Tamalpais came over to Redwood, and so we presented jointly there. And we have been going back to the sites to be present for questions or additional feedback, spending a few hours at each of the sites. We were at Redwood from 7:30 to 11, someday late last week, Friday. We were at Drake on Monday morning. We were at San Andreas this afternoon. We'll be at TAM tomorrow, and Tamalpais on the 22nd, I believe. And then again, we will be making the same presentation that we made to staff, to the community on these dates at these times. Again, these were the opportunities for feedback. These were the feedback questions we're asking. That QR code is live, and it'll take you directly to a Google form. That's also the URL. This was emailed out to the entire staff as well. And community members will have an opportunity to fill out the same form. So our next steps, again, the community meetings beginning tomorrow night. We will take all of that feedback, compile it, and bring it to the Fiscal Advisory for their last meeting in January. It's not their last meeting, it's the last one in January. I will bring a recommendation to the board on the 12th. The board will take action on the 26th. Questions?
Students?
Students are welcome to the community forums. You're also welcome to fill out the form.
And thank you for doing that summary of the process, because I think this is tough having a new board come in the middle of the budgeting process. And so just to remind the community, because we've started to get some feedback from the community, that this is a draft recommendation. Nothing has been decided, and to reiterate that data is being gathered at the forums, and then the board will have an active discussion about it on February 12th in response to Dr. Topier's recommendations.
Yeah, Kara.
I had a question. We went over in the TAM newsroom the staff presentation, and I was wondering, are there going to be any more details on how these are going to be laid out with, for example, I know BACR is proposed to be cut by 50%. Is there going to be more explanation on how that's going to happen, or is it just the pure numbers and organizations?
So that work will be done afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think the best answer I can give you is as thoughtfully as possible. And that's, we have our student services working with BACR on what potential reductions might look like.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We'll move on. Oh, any public comment? Seeing none on this item, we'll move on. Financial audit report for 2017 and 2018. Mr. Awesome.
So good evening, trustees. Good evening, student trustees. It's my pleasure to bring forward our 2017 audit report. In a moment, I'm going to cede the podium to our guest, Ms. Sarah Feeler, who is the representative from the Christie White & Associates auditing firm, who we've used for 2 years. It's been a pleasure to work with her. The professionalism of her and her firm is to be commended, and it's been a great learning opportunity for myself and our staff. So Sarah is going to give a little bit of background on just what an audit is, the purpose of it, why we do that as public schools in the state of California, and then she'll get more specific into the recommendations and findings of the district, and then we'll open up to any questions or comments. So with that, I'll like to introduce Ms. Sarah Feeler.
My name, as Corbett mentioned, my name is Sarah Feeler. I'm a director with Christie White Associates, the independent auditing firm that works with Tamalpais Union High School District. And it's my pleasure to be here this evening to present the audit report for the year ended June 30, 2018. And before I go into kind of the details of the audit report, just to give a little bit of a brief background of what is an audit, and I also want to go into a little bit of what our audit process is. So related to the audit, the school district is responsible for effectively designing and implementing internal controls. The district is responsible for the financial statements. They are the district's financials. And the district is responsible for preparing and managing a budget. And the auditor's responsibility, our responsibility as Christie White Associates, is to issue an opinion, and that opinion is on to the reasonable assurance that the financial statements and disclosures are materially correct. Our opinion doesn't address the financial condition of the district. However, in our independent auditor's report, we would make mention if the district had any going concern issues. It would be presented there. And for our independent auditor's report for this year, we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get. It's the top level. Under that is a qualified opinion, and then under that even further is an adverse or a disclaimer of opinion, and so unmodified opinion is the best opinion that can be issued. So that's great news. And going into our procedures as we conduct the audit, our audit's conducted in 2 phases. One is our interim visit, which usually happens in the spring or early summer. During that visit is when we test the internal controls of the district over payroll, expenditures, and also cash receipts or collections. We also visit all of the school sites or a sample of the school sites, looking at attendance and ASB procedures. And then during our year-end visit, which occurs after the district has closed the financial statements and prepared their unaudited actuals. That usually happens in the fall. And at that visit, we are looking at the balances that are reported in the unaudited actuals to make sure that they are stated correctly, doing various substantive procedures. And also, during both of those phases of the audit, we are doing federal compliance auditing and state compliance auditing. So going back into our independent auditor's report that we issued for the year, we again issued an unmodified opinion, and this can be found on page 2 of the audit report. And here's an excerpt of what the opinion paragraph looks like. And it states that, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly and in all material respects the respective financial position of Tamalpais Union High School District for the year ended June 30, 2018. We also issue a report on internal controls over financial reporting, and in this report we note if there are any deficiencies, and we did note a significant deficiency related to internal controls, and this is finding 2018-1, and this is in regards to cash and county treasury, and reconciling to the cash and county treasury was what we noted needed to be improved upon. And we did not note any material weaknesses over internal controls. Additional opinions that we issue is over federal compliance and state compliance. For federal compliance this year, we tested the IDEA Basic Local Entitlement Program. And we issued an unmodified opinion with no significant deficiencies and no material weaknesses. And we also issue an opinion over state compliance. And you'll see in the table here are the various programs that we test that we are required to test for state compliance. So attendance, independent study, continuation, unduplicated LCFF pupil count, just to name a few. And again, we issued an unmodified opinion on state compliance. However, we did note two significant deficiencies as finding 2018-2 and finding 2018-3. Finding number 2 was related to the unduplicated LCFF pupil count. We noted that there were students that were noted as free or reduced on the CalPADS reporting. However, they did not have documentation to support that. And so we noted a few students that had that issue. And for finding 2018-3, this finding was related to attendance reporting. And due to turnover that occurred in the business office, the P2 report was not stated correctly. We actually noted that it was there was an understatement of the P2 attendance, so the correction of the P2 report increases the ADA that was reported. So although it is a finding, it was favorable in nature, not noting that it was an overstatement of attendance. And also to note that there were no material weaknesses related to state compliance. And just to conclude my presentation, during various phases of our audit, as I discussed at the beginning of the presentation, we work with everyone from the district office to various individuals at the school sites. And so during our audit process, everyone is very transparent and welcoming, which sometimes can be, sometimes we don't get that response as the auditors. We tend to come in when it's the worst week, to come and be audited. So just during all the phases of our audit, every staff member that we worked with here at the district and the school sites was very helpful, transparent in the audit process, which is very helpful. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if there may be any.
I have questions regarding the findings, but
Sure.
it's more what we've done in response. So are those for you?
Sure.
Corbett? Or,
Sure.
Just for the, so the unduplicated LCFF students, right? I think you said that there were some that were listed as eligible for free and reduced lunch, but we didn't have backup documentation.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are we doing about that?
Yes. So the 3 areas you talked about, none of them were surprises, as you
Right.
can imagine. As Sarah alluded to, we had a key turnover in the business office earlier in the spring, and both the cash challenge we had and the attendance challenge is very similar and analogous in nature. So that's something since I've come in July, it's been an area of focus.
Okay.
So we've been training the staff appropriately who've come into the office to use best practices to account for that, to ensure that doesn't happen in the future. Part of it was just a simple breakdown of communication from one site into the business office. So I'm confident that will be resolved.
Okay.
The unduplicated count in terms of the documentation from in terms of showing up in CalPADS, that is something that with a new director of nutrition services, I want to sit down with her once she gets a chance to get her feet underneath her a little bit, and sit down with our Jackie Hamilton, who manages our CalPADS, our student information system, and walk through that process and make sure we're clear on how to do that. The previous director of nutrition has obviously retired and moved on, so early in December. So I'm looking forward to sitting down with Lisa Herberger, new director of nutrition, and Jackie Hamilton. So just walk through the information flow to get that resolved. So we haven't resolved that yet, but that's a plan to do soon.
Great. Thank you.
So just to clarify, there's a reporting where nutritional services gathers the data, but Jackie Hamilton, our head IT data specialist, inputs it. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Comments, students, questions, comments?
So do we know, were there any students who were using that free and reduced lunch who didn't have the proper documents for it? And is that going to be taken away, or was it more just students, it was reported but the students didn't really know about it and no harm done?
It was more the other way. I think we were reporting students who were eligible for it, but we didn't have all the supporting documentation we're required to provide to back that up.
Okay. So we're just going to get that documentation to back it up?
Yep, so moving forward with staff turnover, we just want to be clear on what the law is and the process for that, and just make sure all staff and all of us are on the same page of how to do that. And my job is to make sure they have that information and support so we can do it as efficiently as possible and making sure we have everything that's required by law.
Other comments? Thank you, Corbett.
Great,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Ms. Wheeler.
And again, thank you,
very
Sarah.
much.
I really appreciate you coming out this evening.
Of course, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have to approve it, yeah.
Okay, so we have to do a move. Okay. May I have a motion to approve? To accept the financial audit report for 2017, 2018?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Student vote? Anything? Okay.
So motion carries.
Motion carries, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to look at the next item is our board meeting calendar for next year. There's no action being taken tonight on this. This is just a first round view. Most of the dates mirror what we are doing this year. But I do want to note, Mary, could you scroll to the bottom? There has, yeah, so I just want to make a note of the what seems to be odd, the June 2nd and then June 23rd dates. As you know, June are very important dates because we have to present our LCAP and then approve it in consecutive meetings with the board. We also have graduation in there. And what we have found and what will happen this year is Tamalpais graduates on the same night as a board meeting, making it sort of harried and difficult for us to attend and properly celebrate our Tamalpais students. So it had been a discussion with previous board members, and when Leslie, Barbara, and I discussed it, we thought we should bring that up and look at alternative ways so that we are not holding a board meeting the same week as graduation to free up board members to attend graduations. So those are the suggested dates. I don't know if there's any comments or questions or recommendations for other dates. Students, affects you guys too? No? How do you all feel about not having a meeting on the week of graduation?
It's freaking me out because it's my graduation.
Looks good.
Okay. So we'll bring this back in the next meeting for approval.
Very good, thank you. Right, now we're down to trustee reports already. Okay. Trustee reports. Are there any trustees' reports? I would like to make a comment if there isn't for our JLAC agenda. Our annual priorities continue to be, and I think with some success, the push has been towards the pension liabilities and school funding. I think you can see that there's this communal effort is having an effect, and we need to keep it going. We're working on full and fair funding, and I think the folks in LA are giving us a boost there. Our second priority is to manage the special education funding process.
Yeah, that one is, there is a press to have some legislation around limiting the ability for parents to unilaterally place a student in a non-public school and back sue a district for the costs. So we'll see.
And we have continued to get behind school construction and modernization. There are other districts who have been waiting for their bond money now for 3 years, and of course then all the costs of construction go up routinely, monthly. So we have other districts that are very concerned about that. And charter schools. transparency. I think we're seeing that. That's our fourth priority. And finally, early childhood education. You can see that I think we're making some progress in the state on that. A lot of issues to work out, but I think we're doing well in terms of, and JLAC meeting, sorry, I don't know the next date.
We're going to Sacramento.
That's right.
Wednesday.
Thank you.
Legislative Action Day is the 23rd.
That's right, and student trustees are going?
Yes.
Who's riding the bus?
I think we have to.
Yeah, we don't have a choice.
Yeah. But we also want to.
Are there any
I'm
other
riding the bus, too.
trustees who'll be going?
No, it's all the trustees in room.
Okay. I'll be going.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else to, Marin County School Boards Association, our adult trustees, I hope that when you get the information, we have a date on it, but I hope you will be able to attend for the opportunity that we discussed in a workshop setting to meet other trustees from other school districts and other administrators as well.
Public comment.
Oh, thank you. Okay. There were no items for board communications this time. We'll see them next meeting. For public comment for items not on the agenda, we do have a speaker, and
You need to read this.
I have to read the whole thing. Okay. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and provides this time for members of the audience to address the board on any school-related matter not on this agenda. The board can take no action at this time. Each speaker is requested to identify themselves prior to addressing the board and will be heard for up to 3 minutes. The presiding officer of the board shall determine, based on time constraints of the board, whether some time less than 3 minutes shall be allocated. And we do have a speaker, and thank you for, Ms. Bowman, thank you for filling out the comment card. It's not required. We do it so that we can be accurate in terms of our,
Come on up.
please come up to the podium, so that we can be accurate in terms of our minutes.
Thank you.
It's to be 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Bowman. I'm the librarian at Tamalpais High School, and I'm speaking this evening regarding the supplemental retirement plan from PARS that has been offered to me. When I looked at the proposal, I explored several different aspects. Is it actually a retirement packet? Actually, it is not. It is a resignation packet offered to employees who meet certain criteria. I just barely qualify with this being my 5th year with the district. It always has been my intent for TAM to be my final campus. I plan to serve the community for another 5 years. Taking complete retirement from teaching in California would mean $1,394 per month for 5 years from the district and $762 from CalSTRS. At the end of this year, I will have put 6 years into the California system. This amount is not a living wage, and my insurance is $1,500 for my husband and I, which the district currently pays. Since I have only put in 5 years in the district, I would not be able to take advantage of the retirement insurance offer that is available to employees with 10 years or more with the district between the ages of 60 and 65. After insurance, this leaves me with $656 per month. In the meantime, I was quietly told that I should take the offer because there isn't much support for libraries. That was a surprise, considering the outpouring of support from the community last year. Last week on our January 7th Professional Development Day, we were presented with the elimination of certificated librarians for the 2019-2020 school year. We were told that this could change based on community input and based on Governor Newsom's budget. The deadline for me to turn in the resignation packet is 5 p.m., January 25 next week. According to the PowerPoint printout given to us on November 6th, the district announces on February 1 whether or not the plan goes forward. Certainly taking the packet is more advantageous to me than not taking it if the board votes to deprofessionalize its libraries. Governor Newsom presented his budget 3 days after the PD Day on January 10. One justification for eliminating certificated and classified staff in our district is blamed on the high cost of CalPERS and CalSTRS expenses. Newsom's budget calls for a $5.7 billion relief of CalPERS and CalSTRS rather than having districts pay it. So I'm wondering how will this new information change the conversation? I am respectfully requesting that I be given more time to consider the packet, to turn in a resignation packet before I know whether or not my position is eliminated. Seems backward to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Any other public comment?
Hello, I am Hannah Sellers. I'm a freshman here at Redwood High School, and I am a member of the leadership class here at Redwood. I'm my class's secretary, and I'm very involved in the class. It's one of my favorite parts of the day. And I think leadership is a very, very valuable aspect of Redwood. There's so much that we put on with this class, and we bring so much to the school, the social and community aspect of the school. As well, academics are the central focus of Redwood. The social and community parts are really what make Redwood so valuable and such a remarkable school. And I feel like if we were to lose this leadership class or have less access to it for freshmen and sophomores with the budget cuts, then this would really diminish a lot of what brings so much value to our school and our community. And I really just would like you to consider all that this class can bring and all the social and community aspects that it adds to our school. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Any other public comments? Okay. So now what? Gavel? We done?
Yep. Adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, meeting is adjourned.